Okay. Let's see here. Hey guys. I think we're on. Yeah. This is Coding Canal with your host Jesse Canal. We're gonna be doing some live streaming today, and particularly it's gonna be Azure fundamentals. Looking at taking some practice exams and doing a little bit more studying for AZ-900, which is Microsoft's certification. I'm just gonna tap into one of these live streams and see how things are going. Make sure that the stream's looking good. Alright, here we go. Testing. See if this is working. Yeah, audio seems pretty good. I don't think we're dropping. No, we've got some drop frames. Let's see here. Just gonna adjust that a bit. And I apologize to people on LinkedIn who are probably going to watch this after the fact. Apparently I can't do 60 FPS as well as I can't do 1080p on LinkedIn. So I fixed the 1080p part, but I didn't know about the 60 FPS part. So we'll get that next time. Turn it down to 30 FPS and hopefully be doing good. Oh, now we're dropping some frames again. Let's see, maybe I need to close some of these tabs and help the computer out a bit. Alright, did that help at all? Not much. Okay, I think we're doing better now. Alright. That's right, we're in PJs. It's Sunday. I can wear PJs. Okay. Let's see. and open here. Azure Fundamentals. Practice test. Let's see what we can find. Alright, so screen. There we go. Cool. Let me stick me over on the right side here. So, just going to be doing free ones that are easily available. Because anything that I'd have to pay for or is somehow, you know, some rights that I don't have access to, I don't want to be distributing that. So. Yeah, just see what we can find here. All right. Here's some questions. So, and we'll dig up our Azure Fundamentals exam. Get our little like syllabus thingy again. Here we go. Certification skills outline. So this is what we went through in the practice or study sessions, part 1 through 3. So yeah, you can always look at those to get an idea of these what we talked about throughout here. And we can kind of maybe come back to use this when we're kind of stumped on something. We're trying to see, okay, this is the section that comes from. Maybe that would be helpful. So your company has hundreds of servers hosted in their on-premise environment. The company plans to migrate some of the servers to an Azure pay-as-you-go subscription. Which of the given expenditure models would you suggest in this case? Operating expenditure, public cloud, Azure reservations, and capital expenditure. So public cloud is just Azure, so that's like, it's not really the answer here. It's not a expenditure model. Azure reservations is a way, once you're on Azure, to kind of reserve some computing resources and save some money. It's not an expenditure model. These two here are the expenditure models that we talked about. So operating costs versus capital. Capital is where you're buying servers. You're buying something and then, am I getting this mixed up now? Yeah, no, I think that's right. It's the capital cost that you kind of pay once versus the operating expenses, the operating expenditure that you're paying regularly. So that would be the pay-as-you-go part of it, that there are just recurring costs that you're kind of switching to that model. And there's a number of reasons why that would make sense. If you're doing more capital expenditure, it might make more sense to do on-premise. Whereas if you have a high operational expenditure, maybe it could make more sense to do Azure, especially if you have a big fluctuation. You can kind of scale up and scale down with Azure. So, is he going to tell me if I got these wrong or not? Let's see here. Organization plans to migrate its Docker containers to Azure. You've been asked to suggest a solution that offers a set of version control tools to help developers manage the application code. Which amongst the following will you include in your recommendation? Azure Repos, Azure Monitor, Azure Activity Log, and Azure Pipelines. So these are all, but not all of them. Azure Pipelines and Azure Repos is part of the Azure DevOps solution. Monitor is something that comes in like pretty much all Azure services to help monitor like compute resources. Azure Activity Log, I think that's just, I don't know if that's kind of going along with Monitor and kind of application insights. I haven't really heard about that one in particular. But so if we're talking about version control and code, that's really a repository thing and a Git or possibly a TFS thing. So that's repos, whereas pipelines is more the CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment side of it. Automation. Peter is working in an organization that hosts its non-critical servers in Azure. He asked to recommend a support plan that gives billing and subscription management support, Azure Advisor Access, and Azure Health Status and notifications at the lowest possible cost. Okay, which of the following support plans should Peter suggest in this case to meet the requirement? So this is something I don't think that we talked about in here. So kind of going back, here's the capital expenditure versus operational expenditure. I'm live streaming. Yeah, let's see here. Trying to find Azure Monitor, Azure Service. I don't think that we get into some of the different like pricing models. Planning and managing costs. So I guess that you could say maybe it's part of some of this type of stuff here. And if you, let's see, Azure Fundamentals Exam. If you start going through these learning paths, they start to talk about the different costs, levels, and what you get. So we'll see. I don't know if I know these very well. It might be a point that I have to kind of cover better. Non-critical servers. Let's see here. Here's a support plan that gives billing and subscription management support, Advisor Access, and Azure Health Status and notifications to the lowest possible cost. So some of this type of stuff sounds like some add-ons, some additional monitoring management tools, even though it is for non-critical servers. Yeah, I don't know if they're development servers, so it doesn't sound like it, so I'm going to say not developer. I don't think that basic gives you some of this stuff. I could be wrong. I think maybe we have to go to standard. So we'll try that and see where that goes. Some of the premium stuff is just usually like lower latencies, just faster hardware. So we'll see. Jane is working in an organization that plans on storing 40 terabytes of data in Azure that they can query using either serverless, on-demand, or provisioned resources at a scale. So yeah, serverless, you can have kind of that on-demand and it's scaling versus a more provisioned thing where it's like a set resources and it might have an app service behind it. Also, it's required that the stored data must be integrated and visualized using Microsoft Power BI for analytics. Which of the following Azure services should Jane suggest in this case? Cycle Cloud, I've never heard of that. Sphere is a IoT framework and set of hardware, I guess, for having like secure IoT. So that really doesn't sound like it. Azure Database Migration Service, I think that's for migrating from on-prem to Azure Database. Synapse Analytics is their data warehousing offering, which kind of hooks up to a variety of data sources like Cosmos or SQL Server, and then allows you to query it, and you can query it using Power BI. So I think that would make sense to me. Blank offers real-time analytics and complex event processing engine. Yeah, so the data lake is kind of this storage of data that doesn't really have any sort of schema or structure to it necessarily. And you can kind of just dump data there, and it's a little bit better than blob storage, but not much. But it's really cheap. I don't know what it's got for analytics and event processing. I think it's just more storage, so I don't know if that makes sense. The Event Hub, I'm pretty sure that is more of a IoT solution for dealing with different kind of IoT events and doing analysis on it. It's close, I think. I'm not sure if that's it. Logic Apps is kind of like this workflow software that's got like a GUI component to it. I think that's maybe a little bit too kind of slow. I guess event processing engine, so Event Hub. And then Stream Analytics, I think that's for specifically, is that for streaming video? So I think there is some tooling for that Azure has. Build streaming pipelines. They're all kind of not too far. Serverless real-time analytics. So I don't think this is the video streaming that I was talking about. Deliver powerful insights from your streaming data with ease. So it is data streams. Use real-time analytics service set aside for mission-critical workloads. Build an end-to-end serverless streaming pipeline with just a few clicks. Zero to production in minutes using SQL, easily extensible with custom code, and built-in machine learning capabilities for more advanced scenarios. Okay. Man, all these are very similar. And there's even like some other stuff that's kind of like similar and could also be used. So Event Hub received telemetry from millions of devices. So that I think that is the IoT part of it. Event Hubs is a fully managed real-time data real-time ingestion service that's simple, trusted, and scalable. Stream millions of events per second from any source to build dynamic data pipelines and immediately respond to business challenges. Integrates seamlessly with other Azure services to unlock valuable insights, allowing existing Apache Kafka clients and application talk to event hubs. Without any code change, you get a managed experience without having to manage your own clusters. Okay. Experience real-time data ingestion and micro-batching in the same stream. So it's definitely, what we're talking about here is all big data stuff. So that's why we're kind of pretty close versus stream analytics. Together, Event Hubs and Stream Analytics provides an end-to-end solution for real-time analytics. And it lets you feed events into Azure in real time, and Stream Analytics jobs can process those events in real time. So it's like both. Blank offers real-time analytics. Okay, it sounds like Event Hub. Complex event processing engine. Stream Analytics. I guess event processing versus analytics. So maybe I think we're kind of more talking about the first part of the stream, data coming in, and then not talking about the analytics side of it as much. So let's go with Event Hub. By the way, I should have talked about this. You cannot debate these questions as much as I am and talking through and all this stuff. I think in the exam, you get 90 minutes for like 60 questions or something like that. It's like a minute and a half per question. And at some point, I think I'll make like a better wrap-up video to really talk about AZ-900 and make a blog along with it and what to expect from the exam versus kind of this live stream, pretty loose way of doing it. Okay, let's just go back. See, I'm just gonna switch over to me just to make sure I'm not showing anything. I think I'll find that, take that up later. But yeah, I think it's about a minute and a half per. So you gotta you're reading the question. All right, debate a little bit. Okay, that seems about right. Boom, click, and then go on. And now, this gets into just general test taking. But, if there's something that's like, oh, wow, that's way too hard, or it's just a too long question, skip it. We'll come back to it at the end. And, yeah. So, a company plans to migrate all of its servers and data to Azure. John has been asked to suggest a solution that allows to only use software as a service, aka SaaS, Azure products that will support the planned migration. John suggests to deploy Azure Virtual Machines and Azure SQL Database. Does the solution suggested by John meet the requirement? So now, no, for sure. Virtual Machines is IaaS, which is Infrastructure as a Service. And then the SQL database is PaaS, which is Platform as a Service. So no, it does not. A company plans to migrate its, and examples of software as a service would be something like, Office 365 or Salesforce, Dynamics. There's a whole bunch of these different things that are just, you sign up for like some sort of subscription or something like that. You're not worrying about, you don't write code, you're just using software as a service. A company plans to migrate its application servers hosted on-prem to Azure. Which of the following is the key advantage of using the public cloud for its servers? You can tell there's probably going to be a lot of stuff about migrating from on-premise, because that's what Microsoft wants you to do. That's where they're making their money. Which of the following is the key advantage of using? Okay, so public cloud is a free shared entity. It's not free. That is crowd-funded by the public and accessible to everyone. That's definitely not right, and it really sounds more like open source software, which isn't necessarily free. But public cloud is a shared entity operated by a third party cloud service provider that various corporations can use. It's definitely third-party cloud service, and various corporations can use it. Obviously, have to pay. Public cloud is used exclusive by a single business or organization. That would be a private cloud. So if your company has some servers and you can somehow access it, I guess, not on their network, then I guess it's a cloud. I don't know, like when things are on-premise versus a private cloud. I'm not sure what the definition is there, but public cloud is owned by the public and not a private organization or corporation. That is not true. So, blank is used to explain the personal data that Microsoft processes, how Microsoft processes it and for what purpose, their online subscription agreement, their online service level agreement, SLA, their privacy agreement or statement, or their cloud agreement. I don't remember what the cloud agreement is. If we're talking about personal data, how they process it and for what purpose, that really sounds like we're talking about privacy. SLAs are more like, or this company promises to give you this amount of like uptime at these different levels, and here are all the services we're gonna give you based on what you're signing up for. So that's not really that. Let us suppose you plan to deploy several Azure virtual machines. You are required to ensure that the services running on the virtual machines are available if a single data center fails. You are required to ensure that services running on a virtual machine are available if a single data center fails. Okay. You suggest to deploy virtual machines to 2 or more availability zones. And so from what I remember, availability zones are basically different data centers. I think that's right. I think they're different data centers that are not in the same local region. And so if one of them went down, then yeah, you could fail over to another one. And so I think that would meet the desired goal. Excuse me. David is working in an organization that plans to deploy several virtual machines that will host its business critical application to Azure. David has been asked to suggest a solution to ensure that if a single data center fails, the application will not be affected. Sounds like very similar. He's to the last one. He suggests to deploy virtual machines of multiple resource groups with the same availability zone. So a resource group is just a grouping of resources, and it's really just a way of kind of organizing the resources. So if you've got some app, like a training and certification app for your company, maybe it's got a database, it's got some storage, it's got a web app service, possibly some other stuff. You'd want to put that kind of all in one resource group. Let's say at some point you delete it, or maybe there's some things that you're doing to all of those services, then a resource group allows you to do that. But if it's in the same availability zone, then this is not meeting our single data center failure part. So no, it does not mean. So let's submit the test. Hopefully we can get some answers back. All right, so 8 of 10 questions are answered correctly, but it's not going to tell me which. That sucks. Yeah. And obviously they want you to pay for their stuff. So we're not going to do that. I wonder next test if I then have to pay for that. Okay. I'm not sure if this is a great way of teaching people though, for me to just like, I think this is right, and then we never know if it's actually correct or not. Let's see what else we can find. Suggest you try our sample Microsoft Azure practice exam. Let's see, is this something? Okay, you gotta log in. Sample questions, but if we don't have answers, we do have answers. Cool. So let's see. Maybe let's copy this. Just gonna open up a Google Drive, Word doc. Google Doc, I suppose. To listen to so we can record our answers. All right. Which Azure service should you use to source certificates? Security Center. I think the Security Center is more for analyzing different threats and looking at like your firewall and how you have different things set up. And I think that's now changed from Azure Security Center to Windows Defender for Cloud. An Azure storage account probably wouldn't be the best place. You could I think, technically do that, but it wouldn't like be automatically encrypted and all that nice stuff. Azure Key Vault really, I think, is the place to do it. It's where you would store keys and secrets in a encrypted, safe way. Azure Information Protection, I'm not exactly sure what that is. I suppose maybe stuff that we encounter that we don't know what it is, we should look up, huh? Better protect your sensitive information anytime, anywhere. Control and help secure email, documents, and sensitive data that you share outside your company. From easy classification to embedded labels and permissions. Excuse me. Enhanced data protection at all times with Azure Information Protection, no matter where it's stored or who it's shared with. Classify your data based on sensitivity. So this sounds kind of like a mix of their basic storage with kind of more an encrypted version of it, where you know that it's secure files that you want to store. Which I bet you can probably do with the Azure storage, but I guess it's just a more specific version of that. Don't think you'd want to do certificates there though. So I think let's go with the Key Vault. I'm just going to bold our answers. Yeah, we'll do that and then we'll come back. Okay, so you have a virtual machine named VM1 that runs Windows Server 2016. VM1, this might be an old test, but is in the East US Azure region. Sorry guys, did not get good sleep last night. I'm tired. Which Azure service should you use from the Azure portal to view service failure notifications? So service failure notifications that can affect the availability of VM1. Service Fabric is a service for hosting kind of multiple apps and be able to kind of scale them up and down, kind of like a Kubernetes type thing, but it's really just app code and not in a container, from what I understand of it. So that's really not what we're talking about here. Monitor, I think you could look at failure notifications. Virtual machines. I mean, that's just the service for setting up the virtual machines. Use service failure. This really sounds more like outages or something. Like cloud outages. So Azure Advisor, I'm trying to remember what that is. Free personalized guide. Oh, yeah, I think this is kind of what is on the portal and stuff that gives you little tips about how to set things up correctly, and talks about maybe if you've got some security breaches or obvious security faults in how things are set up, then it'll kind of warn you about that. Quickly optimize your Azure deployments. Azure Advisor analyzes your configurations and uses telemetry to offer personalized, actionable recommendations to help you optimize your Azure security, operational excellence, performance, and cost. So it's kind of more in setting up your services, not for kind of actively monitoring ongoing services. So I don't think that's the way to go. I mean, virtual machines in that service, you can look at your virtual machines and see different data about them, but I think what you're actually looking at when you set those up is the Azure Monitor service, So I'm going to go with that one. If we get it wrong, we can look into that more. What are two characteristics of the public cloud? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Each correct selection is worth 1 point. Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Okay, so just because we have two, then they're counting as 1 point each, I think is what they're saying. Dedicated hardware. You can get dedicated hardware. I wouldn't say it's a typical characteristic of the cloud. Unsecured connections, obviously not. Limited storage, it's not necessarily limited. I mean, technically it is, but metered pricing is really kind of makes more sense. That's kind of the pay-as-you-go, pay-as-you-use type mentality, so I think that makes more sense. Self-service management, for the most part, it is kind of a more self-service thing. I can go onto the portal and sign up for stuff, and I'm kind of, I can talk to people and figure things out that way, but it's a little bit more self-service, and I think that's more of a characteristic of it. A company is planning on deploying a stateless-based application based on microservices. So stateless, not having a state, not having kind of current storage, current memory. Based on microservices using the Azure Service Fabric. That's the service that we talked about before. You need to design infrastructure that would be required in the Azure Service Fabric service. Which of the following should you consider? Choose two. Number of nodes, node types in the cluster. Oh man, this is getting into Azure Service Fabric, which I don't know that well. Node types in the cluster. Properties of each node type. Oh man, network connectivity and the service tier. I don't even know what we're talking about there. So let's dig into Azure Service Fabric a little bit more. Simplify microservices development and application lifecycle management. Work platform low latency, high throughput workloads, stateful containers or microservices. We're talking about stateless, but maybe you can do it without state. Run anywhere. Supports Windows / Linux on Azure. On-prem or other clouds. That's interesting. Didn't know that you can do it on-prem or other clouds. Reliably scale and orchestrate containers and microservices. So it's both containers and kind of just app code running as a microservice. Run anything, your choice of languages and programming models, scales up to thousands of machines. I think this is kind of more of the selling page. If we can get more of a documentation page, that would be nice. If we could go back, that would be great. Just go backwards. Oh, that's right, we looked it up there. So this Azure. Yeah, let's go into the docs more. Distributed system platform makes it easy to package, deploy, and manage scalable and reliable microservices and containers. So there's significant challenges in developing and managing cloud-native applications. Key differentiator of Service Fabric is a strong focus on building stateful services. Interesting. So that's really keeping state. So you've got some variable or some objects, and you're kind of keeping that in memory. I would say is what stateful is, which is the opposite of stateless, obviously. You can use the Service Fabric programmable to or run containerized stateful services written in any language or code. You can create Service Fabric clusters anywhere, including Windows Server and Linux on-prem and other public clouds. In addition to Azure, we talked about all that. There's many Microsoft services today. Great. We need to get into more specifics of like nodes and stuff like that. Sophisticated lightweight runtimes for stateless, and stateful microservices. The key difference is for building stateless solutions. Okay. So what's our question here? The node types. We need to figure out what are these node types. I hope it's not going to get this in depth on every single service. It would just be so hard to do. You know, like, okay, you've got to use every single service at least to like an intermediate level or something like that. It's like, oh man, that's a lot for fundamentals. Node types in virtual. Okay, so you can use scale sets to deploy and manage a collection of machines as a set. Each node type that you define in Azure Service Fabric Cluster sets up exactly one scale set. Okay, so I think that's running on a collection of virtual machines. Multiple node types cannot be backed by the same scale set, and one node type should not be backed by multiple scale sets. One node should not be backed. Okay. So you kind of want to keep it one node type to one scale set. Can't have multiple node types on one scale set on the same scale set. You don't want to do one node type with multiple scale sets. The Service Fabric runtime is installed on each virtual machine in the scale set by the Microsoft Machine Extension. You can independently scale each node type up or down. So what are these node types? So there's a cluster that has two node types named front end and back end. Each node type has 5 nodes. So yeah, you might have a back end that's more of like an API, and then a front end that's just kind of serving up static resources, perhaps. Or it might be, ASP.NET, and it's not static necessarily, but it's not the back end to it. I've separated those out. Map virtual machine scale sets, nodes. Okay. Well, I think we have some idea here to say company is planning on deploying based on microservices. You need to design the infrastructure that would be required. So, number of node types in the cluster. I mean, you definitely have to think about that. Number of node types in the cluster. Yeah. The properties of each node type. I think that's going to be an important thing. I think network connectivity, while that's like important, we're not necessarily saying that the Service Fabric is going to be on prem or public, on Azure or AWS. I don't think it's saying that. So network connectivity is part of it. Doesn't seem like that's really what it wants to be part of the design, I don't know. The service tier, I mean, that's also something you need to consider. What level of service do you need? But if you're just, you design the infrastructure, that would be. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm going to go with the top two because we're talking about Azure Service Fabric, not the back end part of it, even though that's kind of what infrastructure is, right? But we'll see. Your company is planning a deployment using Azure database for Postgres. Deployment should meet the following requirements: up to 10 terabytes of storage, Azure Premium Storage, point in time, restore for up to 35 days. This is some heavy stuff here, I think. You need to select the appropriate deployment and pricing tier to meet those requirements and minimize costs. What should you select? Azure database for Postgres. So single service basic tier. This doesn't sound basic to me. Single server memory optimized. Okay, so the different kind of server levels. Memory optimized. 10 terabytes of storage, that's not memory, that's storage. And we're not really talking about memory at all. So that, I don't think that necessarily makes sense. Hyperscale, I think that's, I don't know what Citus is, but hyperscale sounds like it's going to be on like a whole bunch of servers. And kind of splitting up the workload amongst a whole bunch of servers. We don't really mention that here at all. And then just general purpose. So I don't know, what the limit is. 10 terabytes, I guess, sounds a lot to like just a regular person, right? Who's got like a terabyte hard drive. I think this is a half a terabyte actually. So, but maybe for just a general purpose, up to 10 is kind of where you're at. If it's premium storage, maybe we can still get that with general. I don't think basic probably gets you there. So I think that's kind of where I'm going to end up on that. This is another thing that could really make this exam tough is like you have to know every single tier level for all of these different Azure resources and what they offer, like, oh, basic tier is up to 5 terabytes, or maybe it is up to 10, but it's not premium, and, general, it's like, man, there's like, what, 30 different services that I gotta memorize every single tier for? I mean, that's a little nuts, I think. I don't know. We'll have to try to figure that out a little bit better, and maybe some of these practice exams are trying to make it sound worse than it actually is. A team has an Azure Cosmos DB account. A solution needs to be in place to generate an alert from Azure Log Analytics when a query request charge exceeds 40 units. Okay, solution needs to be in place to an alert from Azure Log Analytics. When a query request charge exceeds 40 units more than 10 times during a 10-minute window. Oh man, which of the following would you recommend? Create a search query to identify, and I haven't done anything with like the search queries, but the log analytics and Azure Monitor, application insights, they all kind of share a similar query language that you can use to, basically just query data in a simplified format. That's not like Power BI type create a search query to identify when the request charge exceeds 40. Exceeds 40 units more than 10 times. Okay. Create a search query to identify when the charge exceeds 10. Request charge. So yeah, the query is, each query is going to have a charge of kind of units, which I think has to, it goes into like how much processing is it taking and how much like memory and stuff. So like a big query that takes a long time is going to have more units than a super simple fast query, basically. So this definitely seems like the right answer here. Create a search query to identify when the duration exceeds 10. Duration in seconds, maybe. Maybe it's in minutes, I don't know. I don't think that's what we're talking about. Configure a period of 10 and a frequency of 10. I don't know what that means. I'm going to go for this. That's going to give us 40. Oh, so we need 2. Okay. So that's like, you can't really do it with just this. We need this to get our search query when it exceeds 40. But then we also need, I think, the period of 10, frequency of 10. So that would be the period of 10 minutes, and then frequency of 10. So it's happening 10 times in that 10 minutes. Because just doing duration exceeds 10, that sounds more like a single query exceeds 10, and that's not really what we're talking about. Okay. Your company plans to deploy several million sensors that will upload data to Azure. You need to identify which Azure resources must be created to support the planned solution. Which 2 Azure resources should you identify? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Yeah. So we're talking big data again. IoT Hub really sounds like our sensor part of it. So I think I'm going to go with that for one of them. Upload data to Azure. Okay. So the IoT Hub, I think, is for, you know, getting all that data and then creating some sort of stream to then send it someplace. But then we also, it sounds like, need a place to send it. I don't even know what Azure Q Storage is. Q Storage is a service for storing a large number of messages. You access messages from anywhere in the world via authentication. I don't know how this is different than like a service bus. Queue message can be up to 64 gigabytes size, and queue may contain millions of messages. Total capacity of the storage account. Queues are commonly used to create a backlog of work to process asynchronously. So I wonder, I mean, I know how a queue storage works, but I wonder how that's different than versus service bus. Differences and similarities. Storage queues are part of Azure storage infrastructure. You store a large number of messages. You access messages from anywhere in the world. That's what we just talked about. Okay, service bus queues are part of a broader Azure messaging infrastructure that supports queuing, publish, subscribe, more advanced integration patterns designed to integrate applications or application components that may span multiple communication protocols, data contracts, trust domains, or network environments. So it's just a beefier queue with different like patterns, integration patterns and protocols. File storage really doesn't sound like it. Notification hubs, I don't even know what that is. Mobile push notifications, send push notifications to any platform from any backend. Okay, that's interesting. Didn't know about that one. That's definitely not what we're talking about. I think we're either talking about data lake or queue storage. You know, like I said before, data lake is really just like this big data storage. Cost-effective solution to run big data workloads. Choose between on-demand clusters or paper. Let's read more about it. No limits data lake components. Store and analyze petabyte-sized files, trillions of objects, debug and optimize your big data program with ease during seconds. Develop massively parallel programs. So, like, what's the difference between Azure Data Lake versus event hubs? So you're going from event hubs to data lake. Because data lake is just the storage. IoT hub versus event hub. Azure provides services. Both Azure IoT Hub and Event Hubs are cloud services that can ingest large amounts of data, process or store that data for business insights. Features are similar in that they both support ingestions of data with low latency and high reliability, but they're designed for different purposes. IoT Hub is developed to address the unique requirements of connecting IoT devices to the Azure cloud, while Event Hub is designed for big data streaming. Microsoft recommends using IoT Hub to connect to IoT. Okay. So, yeah, it kind of depends. What are we doing with the IoT data once we have it? I guess if we're saying that it'll upload data to Azure, then where are we storing it? I guess we're going to store it in a data lake. In which Azure support plans can you open a new support request? Yeah, this one I definitely don't know. I would think in all of them. So let's just go with all of them. Your company uses management groups to manage resources in your Azure tenant more efficiently. Azure One should be, so these are management groups. Azure One should be able to assign access and assign policies to manage, User One should be able to assign access and assign policies to management groups. You need to determine to which role-based access control role User One should be added. Yeah, this is that whole RBAC thing that we touched on, but man, I don't remember much about. And this is not specific to Azure. Azure Management for helps you manage who has access to Azure resources, what do you do. authorization system built on Azure Resource Manager that provides ingrained access management for one user to manage virtual machines and a subscription, and another user to manage virtual networks. SQL database and subscription. So it sounds like just a way of managing different permissions, at different levels, kind of within a subscription. All this was in a resource group, kind of different levels, I think. Okay. Your solution should follow the principle of least privilege. To which role should you add user 1? So assign access and assign policies to management groups. User access administrator, owner, management, man, I don't know any of these. Oh man, I feel ready for this proposal. Assign access, assign policies to management groups. Management group contributor. If you're a management group contributor, I think you're within a management group. You're not really like an administrator of that management group. Same policies. Owner sounds like they would just get all the rights. User access administrator sounds like you would get administration rights for user access. I don't know. Let's just research this one actually. I think this might be Azure built-in roles. Pretty good. Sounds pretty good. Azure role-based access. Several Azure built-in roles that you can use to assign to users, groups, service principals, and managed identities. So yeah, those are those like 4 kind of like entity types. They can have like security attached to them, security permissions attached to them. Role assignments are the way to control access to Azure resources. If the built-in roles don't meet the specific needs of your organization, figure out. Create your own Azure custom roles. For information about how to assign roles. Okay. So contributor grants full access to manage all resources that does not allow you to assign roles in Azure role-based access control, manage assignments in Azure Blueprints, or share image galleries. So full access to manage all resources. That means that you can delete them, update them, do all sorts of different stuff. But you're not assigning roles or playing around with like permissions and stuff. Owner grants full access to manage all resources, including the ability to assign roles in Azure Backup. Okay. Reader view all resources but does not allow you to make any changes. User access administration lets you manage user accounts to Azure resources. Makes sense. Let's get some of the compute stuff. What was our other one? Management group contributor. I feel like now we're getting into these very specific services and what roles they have. Management and governance. Oh yeah, just, memorize all these, it's not a big deal. It doesn't even tell us, it's just management group contributor role. Oh wow. Okay, so it sounds like it's not that. It sounds like kind of a throwaway answer that they just chucked in there. I'm thinking we're really talking about owner here, based on that. Which service provides serverless computing in Azure? Virtual machines is not serverless, very much not. Functions would be, and that's probably the right answer. Storage accounts. I guess, I don't know, I don't really think of that as serverless, but you don't really like set up the server on it, I don't think. It's just storage. But it's not computing, I guess. That's the other thing. It's not serverless computing. It's not computing. Container instances, there is kind of the server part in the container, like the guest OS that's in that container. So it's not really seen as serverless. So Azure Functions is what we're going with. All right, let's see what our answers were. How do we want to do this? I'll just throw it up at the top here. Yeah, cool. So C, Azure Key Vault, cool. And then I'll just maybe start deleting stuff out. So to C. Oh, okay. So yeah, I remember this one. We weren't quite sure which Azure service you used to monitor the service failure notifications. So let's try to see what really is Azure Monitor. Maybe we don't know exactly what it is. I need the docs version here. Azure Monitor helps you maximize the availability and performance of your applications and services. Whoa, we're dropping frames like crazy. Wow. Switch over. Yeah, I don't know. Internet seems pretty good. I'll just drop her bit rate down to 4,000. I think that's what recommended for YouTube anyways. See if that helps at all. Eventually, once we switch over to 30 FPS next stream, I think that'll help. So, see where that goes. Alright, switch back over. So, Azure Manager overview delivers a comprehensive solution for collecting, analyzing, and acting on telemetry from your cloud and on-premises environments. Let's understand. So it's a number of different services. Yeah, detect and diagnosis with application insight. So part of it is application insight. That's interesting. Correlate issues with VM insights and container insights. Drill into monitoring with log analytics for troubleshooting diagnostics. Yeah, what were we talking about? We were talking about service failure notifications. So I guess I don't know. You know, part of me thinks that like the log analytics and some of like the metrics, I think, and like failures and stuff that come up are part of that. I don't know, but I guess we're just saying that it's built into virtual machines. So that one I'm a little confused on, but, and I don't do a whole lot with virtual machines, so, no, I'll do it, not this one. So, got that one wrong. Question 3, D and E. That one was pretty straightforward, made a lot of sense. Question 4, A and B. Okay, cool. This one we had some trepidation. But I guess, yeah, it's really talking about Azure Service Fabric. And so then we have to worry about number of node types and the properties of each node type. So we're talking about like the back end, front end nodes, but you know, you could probably have, yeah, maybe different kind of services within the back end that are kind of all talking to each other. Maybe each of those would get a node type, or maybe there's some sort of like cache, like memory cache, that's its own node type, maybe. I don't know. Number 5, D. Okay, another one we had a little bit of, we didn't know for sure, but I think because of that Azure Premium and the point-in-time restore up to 35 days, that sounds like a little bit more than just a basic level. That is our general purpose. It has nothing to do with memory or scaling. Alright, so 6, A and D. Cool, got that one right. That one makes a lot of sense. Once we realize, oh, you gotta have 2 answers. Question 7, A and C. Cool. Azure IoT Hub was the given. We didn't know, okay, is it going into some sort of queue to later on get processed? But we're talking about uploading the data, so there's got to be some sort of storage. So yeah, like a more permanent storage, and that would be Data Lake. 8D, cool. Yeah, just support request is pretty basic. All levels get it. 9A, really? Okay. I guess user 1 should be able to assign user access and policies to management groups, even though, what did owner say? Grants full access to manage all resources, including the ability to assign roles. So I guess yes, user can do it, but because we're trying to do least privilege, then we're talking about just user access. And even though here it's talking about manage user access to Azure resources, I guess we also mean to management groups, which is at a higher level than the resource, but just I guess we're talking about user access. So, okay. Which service provides serverless computing in Azure? B. Yeah, that was easy. Cool. Cool beans. I think that's all we get with that one. Okay. Let's see what this one does. Okay. Some different ones there. Oh, drag and drop. Match the cloud model to the correct advantage. So that's just telling us how to do it. Okay. So, okay, I see. So no required capital expenditure. That would be a public cloud. From the common to the left to the advantage on the right. Okay, why did that work then? Looks like it's not letting me select anything and drag anything anywhere. Might be my ad block. So let me just try to reload that, see what happens. Nope, just not working. Probably uses Flash. Alright, so we'll expose the correct answers in just a second. I'm going to say public cloud for the first one. Provides complete control over security. That would be private. But, you know, now you're relying on your own resources for security, which may not actually be that good compared to Azure. But, you know, there's some debate there. Provides a choice to use on-premise or cloud-based, and so that would be hybrid. That's a pretty easy one. So, public, private, hybrid. Cool beans. Which of the following statements select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. Company can extend a private cloud by adding its own physical servers to the public cloud. There's probably some services out there where you could, but generally not. So I'm going to say no. Okay. Can't actually interact with this thing at all, but I'm going to say no for that first one. To build a hybrid cloud, you must deploy resources to the public cloud. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what hybrid means, because let's deploy resources. That deploy part is a little confusing there. I guess, you know, yeah, you're deploying your code to a resources, you're spinning up a resource. But there's definitely the public part of it, otherwise it's just private. So I'm going to say yes for that one. A private cloud must be disconnected from the internet. No, you don't have to be disconnected from the internet. That doesn't make any sense. No, yes, no. Sweet. Yeah, combination of private and public. You have 50 virtual machines hosted on premises and 50 virtual machines hosted in Azure. The on-premise virtual machines and Azure virtual machines connect to each other. Which type of cloud is this? Man, these are all super easy. Hybrid. Wow, amazing. I hope the whole thing isn't like this. Platform, aka PaaS solution that hosts web apps in Azure, provides full control of the operating systems that host applications. Not full control. That would be infrastructure as a service. You get some control, so that's a no. PaaS solution that hosts web apps in Azure can be provided with the additional memory by changing the pricing tier. Yes, so that's where you can kind of control some stuff. So you can set what your pricing tier is, and you know, yeah, memory, storage, compute, stuff like that. PaaS solution that hosts web apps in Azure can be configured to automatically scale number of instances based on demand. Yep, that's yes. So no, yes, yes. No, yes, yes. Boom. If the exam is like this, we're gonna do well. Not like the last one. Kind of. It wasn't too bad. Question is part of a. This question, part of a series of questions, present the same scenario. Okay, each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some questions sets might have more than one correct solution. Okay, well, others might not have a correct solution. Okay, after you answer a question in the section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. Sure. Your company plans to migrate all its data and resources to Azure. Oh man, we're still dropping so many frames. I don't know why. The CPU is not that high, but I don't know if it's the network. Trying to watch the chat on my phone. It's basically the video stream is non-existent. Well, sorry about that, guys. I basically don't have a live stream right now, but I'm gonna keep going. Good Lord, look at that. It is awful. I don't know what it's doing to make it this bad. Let's see if that helps out at all. I mean, I could connect the wired connection. That would probably help a ton, but then I don't know what that's going to do to the stream. It might just completely stop it. But yeah, I mean, the stream is like 10 minutes lagging and dropping all of the frames. I don't know. I'm just going to keep going. No one's watching anyways. Alright. Company's migration plan states that only platform as a service solutions must be used in Azure. You need to deploy Azure environment that meets the company migration plan. You create Azure virtual machines, Azure SQL database, and Azure storage accounts. Does this make the goal? This is the same as one before, so VMs don't, so that would be a no. B, no, yep. VMs are infrastructure as a service. Company plans to deploy several custom applications to Azure. The application, I guess if the string is just not working, then let's try to get the wired connection going. Maybe that'll fix it. Bear with me. Sorry for all the random noises. And does that stop the stream completely? Can we switch access over? Oh, that's right, I disconnected up here. How does that end the stream? Still streaming. Switching over to network. I don't know. Yeah, I still don't even know what causes drop frames, so. I don't think that helped at all. We're still dropping just all of the frames. Oh, at some point we'll figure it out, huh? Alright, I'm gonna keep going. Your company plans to deploy several custom applications to Azure. The application will provide invoice services to customers in the company. Each application will have several prerequisite application service installed. You need to recommend a cloud deployment service solution. What should you recommend? Invoicing service. Your company plans to deploy several custom applications to Azure. Each application has several prerequisite applications and services installed. So that sounds like if you have to have a bunch of applications and services installed, it sounds like you'd want like a VM that you're setting up. So that's where I'd go to the C, infrastructure as a service. So let's try that. C. Manage your own software. Okay. Hotspot, each of the following statements, please select yes. Okay. Building a data center infrastructure is an example of operational expenditure costs. No, that would be capital. So talking about like servers and stuff, that's capital, so no. Monthly salaries for technical personnel are an example of operational expenditure costs. That is, yeah, that's reoccurring, so that's operational, so yes, operating. Leasing software is an example of, yep, so any sort of like subscription or something like that, that's going to be reoccurring, so yes. So no, yes, yes. No, yes, yes. Azure Cosmos DB is an example of, it would really be software as a service. I think it's definitely, so it's not infrastructure as a service. It can be serverless. I'm trying to remember last time I did Cosmos if I did anything with like setting up like a compute tier or anything. And it's not really a whole lot of compute going on. Some though. Is it really serverless though? I don't know. Part of me wants to just say PAS because I feel like you do select the compute that it's running on. Let's do that. I say PAS. Okay, PAS. Cool. Example of pipelines. With software as a service, you must apply software updates. Yeah, I mean, it's really managed for you. So it's not even, I think it probably depends on the service, but I think for a lot of them, it's just like it's just you get the updates. So I would say yes. Infrastructure as a service, you must install the software that you want to use. No, you have complete control, so no. Azure Backup, an example of platform as a service. Azure Backup, I haven't really looked into that a whole lot. Azure Backup, a cloud-based backup service that you can use pay-as-you-go basis to protect your workloads in Azure. It sounds like it's more of a kind of like a software as a service thing. Like, I don't think there's really any compute going on. So I think I'm going to say no to that. So what was it? I think we said yes, no, no. Whoa, did we just get all of them wrong? With software as a service, you must apply software. Apparently, no, you don't have to. Even though I think I remember the documentation. I don't know if that was Dynamics. It was Dynamics that said that you have to apply updates. With infrastructure, you must install the software that you want to use. Yes. What? Doesn't make any sense. You do whatever you want. I guess maybe they mean like no one's going to install it for you. If you want to use software, then you have to install it. And that's true. You don't have to install anything. But I guess if you want to use software, then yes, you have to install it. So I think that's what they're going for. And then I guess Azure Backup is platform as a service. So there must be a compute part of it that you are figuring out and choosing what tier you want. Service provides simple, secure, cost-effective solutions to back up your data and recover it. Maybe it's the recovery part of it. So you can back up on-premise, Azure VMs, manage disk, file shares, SQL Server, database for Postgres, blobs. Use the underlying power and unlimited scale of Azure Cloud, deliver high availability with no maintenance. So I guess that's the other thing. If you've got a ton of stuff going on, then you want this backup that scales. I don't know, whenever I've played around with backups in Azure, it seemed like it was just like this little setting that you picked. And it wasn't really, there wasn't any part of it that was talking about like a compute tier part of it. So, okay, well that was fun. You can create a resource group inside of another resource group. No. An Azure virtual machine can be in multiple resource groups. No. It's a single resource. Resource belongs to only one resource group. A resource group can contain resources from multiple Azure regions. Yes, that would be like availability group stuff, but I don't think that gets into that tier. I think it's management groups, subscriptions, resource groups, and then resources. I'm pretty sure of that. So I'm going to say yes. So I'm going to say no, no, yes. No, no, yes. So multiple different regions can be placed. SQL Server 2019 installed on an Azure VM is an example of platform as a service. No, that would be infrastructure as a service. Azure SQL database is an example of platform as a service. That's true. Azure Cosmos DB is example of software as a service. It is not, as we learned earlier. So, what was it? No, yes, no? Yeah, no, yes, no. No, yes, no. Microsoft SQL Server database that is hosted in the cloud and has software updates managed by Azure is an example of still think that's platform as a service, even if the updates are managed by Azure. Yeah, I mean, I think all of the platform as a service, the updates are managed by Azure. Maybe you can choose for your updates. So we're talking about choosing updates for software as a service. So yeah, platform. Okay. Your company plans to migrate all its data and resources to Azure. The company migration plan. Oh, we just got a few. Okay. Company migration plan states that only platform as a service solutions must be used in Azure. You need to deploy an Azure environment that meets. We can set. Sorry, I'm just looking at the stream, trying to do what I can for it. See if that helps. Okay. Are we still getting a bunch of drop frames? I don't know. I think maybe the bitrate's better now that we plugged it in. Still a bunch of drop frames, but I'm not sure what's going on with that. So the company migration plan states that only PaaS solutions must be used. Okay, you need to deploy an Azure environment that meets the company's migration plan. What should you create? So we know that VMs aren't PaaS. The app surface is PaaS. We talked about VMs not being. So app service and SQL app, those are both PaaS. Storage account is not PaaS. Web server and virtual machine. That's so C. What does a customer provide in a software as a service model? Application data. They're not providing data storage, not compute resource, and not the application software. So it's just their own data that they're bringing. Okay. This is the following statement. Select yes. Okay, yeah. Azure Files is an example. Azure Files. Is that just Azure Files on storage? Simple, secure, and serverless, enterprise grade, cloud file share. Is this just part of our normal storage? I can keep going back. Azure Files offers fully managed files share in cloud. How is this any different than just Azure storage? Azure file shares can be mounted concurrently by cloud or on-premise deployments. So I think I think they're both Azure storage, and it's just different types of Azure storage. So blob versus file. So it's It's not infrastructure as a service. I don't think. Because that's really just the VM part of it. I guess, what is storage? Because you're not talking about the compute part of it. It is kind of like software as a service where it's just you give it the files and then it handles everything else. Let's see. DNS Server. Yeah, maybe I should just look that up. Just Azure storage. Right, so yeah. So, is Azure Storage? I know storage is at IS, but since I'm not managing the storage server, see, it's behind the Azure. Yeah, that's how I think of it. Like, are you managing the operating system and updating the operating system and stuff like that? No, I'm not. I don't even know what operating system it's running on. I mean, it's like, it's a hard drive with, it's got some sort of compute going on, but go through the whole thing. Sounds like they're just like, here, go to this resource and read about it. Cloud computing. I guess that's like, storage and networking. I guess those are just fundamentally considered as infrastructure, which I get. It's not just virtual machines. So I think that's kind of where we draw the line. Okay. So then it would be yes. A DNS server that runs on an Azure virtual machine is an example of platform as a service. That would be no, because it's a virtual machine. Microsoft Intune is an example of software service. We go with yes. I don't actually know what Microsoft Intune is, but it sounds like some sort of software. Cloud-based service that focuses on mobile device management. Seems old or something. Cloud-based service. Control how your organization's devices are used, including mobile phones, tablets, laptops. Configure specific policies to control applications. Emails from being sent to people outside your Intune. I don't know, man. Microsoft Enterprise Mobility, Security Suite, kind of maybe even sounds like some infrastructure stuff. It's like security. I don't know. Maybe I'll just err on the side of software. So, yes, no, yes. Oh, they're all yeses. What? DNS server that runs on an Azure virtual machine. That virtual machine you have to maintain and set up the operating system, therefore making it IaaS. is an example of platform as a service, where you don't have to maintain the operating system. I don't know. I guess they're saying that everything. I mean, I know that everything behind the scene runs on an Azure virtual machine. It's who's setting that up. And to me, if you say it, it sounds like then they're saying like you're setting up the virtual machine. But I guess in this case, you're not setting up the virtual machine. So it's really just saying a DNS server in Azure is platform as a service. Also, isn't DNS kind of a networking thing, which makes it infrastructure? I don't know. I don't know, man. Okay. Well, we got the other ones right, I guess. So, through a whole next page. Okay, please sign up or log in to continue. Cool. Well, I think we're like 2 hours in. Most of this I don't even think is actually being streamed or logged at all, and the stream just crashed. But you know, I think it was worthwhile. There's definitely a bunch of stuff that I looked up and didn't know about, and just kind of drilling more things into my head, and also kind of seeing some weaknesses. So I think that's good. Like I said, I think, I do have access to a private exam, practice exam, so I'll be doing that on my own time and see where we go from there. There might be even more free practice exams where at least you can get part of a practice exam. I think it's probably worth it. And like I said, it's probably worth paying for one too. Especially, if you can get your company to do it. What does it cost? It's like $80 or something like that for the exam. Maybe a bit more, I think. I can't remember. So if you have, buy a practice exam that hopefully the company can keep using for a while, then whatever it costs is probably worth it. So, yeah. That's where I'm gonna hop off, guys. Yeah, this has been the Coding Canal with your host Jesse.HerCanal. Thanks for tuning in about the going over some practice exams for Azure Fundamentals, and yeah, good luck. I think I'm taking the exam in like a week or something, so it's coming up. I'll have to check those dates. Figure that out. So, cool. Yeah. All right. See you guys.